The sunlight hit the polished surface of my desk just right, making the gold lettering on my notebook sparkle. I adjusted the silk blouse at my wrist, the smooth fabric brushing against my skin, and took a slow sip of my coffee, noticing its rich aroma. My phone buzzed again, a number I didn't recognize flashing on the screen. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice steady, though my pulse quickened. "Samantha, it's your dad." The voice cracked through, tight with some emotion I couldn't place. I froze. My father's voice had a way of dredging up memories I thought I'd buried. Memories of nights spent crying in my room, clutching a small music box my grandmother had given me, just to feel someone believed in me. I just wanted to check in," he continued. "I heard about everything. Everything." The words hovered in the air, heavier than the velvet curtains framing the view outside my office window. My mind raced, recalling the scornful words he had once yelled at me. "Your gift is like you, useless." I smiled faintly, a mix of irony and pride curling at my lips. He had no idea who I had become. He had no idea what I'd accomplished without him. And now, here he was calling me, as if time had erased the hurt, unaware that I was no longer the same girl who had sat trembling on my bedroom floor. I took a deep breath, feeling the smooth silk of my blouse again, steadying myself. Whatever happened next, I was ready. I was 15 when it happened, the night my father's words cut deeper than any blade. I had just finished performing at a small community recital, my hands still trembling from the adrenaline, the notes of my violin lingering in the air like whispered secrets. I had hoped he would be proud. My mother had been clapping, eyes glistening with pride, but when my dad walked in, his expression was dark, hard. "You call that talent?" he barked, his voice bouncing off the high ceilings of our living room. "This gift of yours, it's like you, useless." I froze. The violin slipped from my hands, thudding against the polished hardwood floor. My chest tightened, my throat burned with the lump that would not budge. I wanted to vanish, to sink into the floorboards and escape the sting of his words. I could still hear my grandmother's voice in my head, warm and soft, urging me not to let him define me. "Samantha, don't let anyone dim the light that's yours alone. Guard it, grow it, and one day they'll see." Clutching the small music box she had given me, I held it close. Its carved surface was worn from years of loving hands, a tangible reminder that someone believed in me, even when my own family didn't. I remember storming out of the house that night, my violin case slung over my shoulder, tears blurring the streetlights. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to go, away from his judgment, away from the words that had defined me for too long. That night, I made a vow to myself. I would nurture this gift, not for him, not for anyone who doubted me, but for me. I would prove that value isn't given by those who fail to see it. It's created, forged in persistence, in late nights, in quiet victories when no one is watching. Walking under the streetlights, the chill biting my cheeks, I clenched the music box tighter and whispered, "I'll show you, Dad. One day, you'll know who I am and it won't be as you imagined." Leaving home that night didn't feel like freedom. It felt like stepping into a storm I had no map for. But the music box in my bag was a reminder. Someone believed in me, and maybe, just maybe, I could believe in myself too. I rented a tiny apartment downtown, the kind where the walls were paper thin and the floorboards creaked under every step. My violin was my lifeline. I played anywhere I could, small cafes, subway stations, local events, anywhere that would let me share my music. At first, the audience was sparse, sometimes non-existent. But each time I played, I felt a small spark inside me grow stronger. It was in one of those dimly lit cafes that I met Mrs. Evelyn Grant, a retired conductor who saw something in me before I could see it myself. Her eyes were sharp, kind, and unyielding. "You have raw talent, Samantha," she said, her voice smooth like polished wood. "But talent alone won't take you far. You need discipline, vision, and courage. Are you willing to fight for it?" I nodded, barely able to speak through the lump of hope and nerves in my throat. Under her mentorship, I learned more than just music. I learned strategy, persistence, and how to navigate the harsh realities of the world. Nights blurred into mornings as I practiced tirelessly, networking with musicians, booking small gigs, and learning the ropes of promotion and contracts. Each small victory, a paid performance, a thank you note from a client, a brief headline in a local paper, felt monumental. I kept my success carefully hidden from my family. My posts on social media were vague, modest, almost apologetic. No one needed to know that I had already booked a tour across 3 states, that I had signed my first lucrative sponsorship deal, that my net worth was quietly climbing. I didn't want validation from those who had doubted me. I wanted it for myself, proof that I had built something entirely on my own. The music box sat on my nightstand, a silent witness to every triumph and setback. It reminded me of that night on the street, of the vow I made, and the promise I intended to keep, not for anyone else, but for the girl who had once felt useless. Years passed. My repertoire grew. My name began to circulate in circles I had only dreamed of. And with each success, the fire inside me burned brighter, not out of spite, but out of determination to live fully, unapologetically, and true to my gift. One evening, after a sold-out performance at a city hall, I returned to my apartment, leaning against the doorframe, exhausted but elated. My phone buzzed, a familiar number flashing again. My father. I smiled softly, the memory of his words fading into the background. He had no idea who I had become, no clue that the girl he called useless had quietly built an empire of talent and respect. Soon he would find out. But for now, I allowed myself a rare moment of peace. The day finally arrived. My father had called me again, insistently this time, asking if I could meet him at the new gallery downtown. He had that tone, the one that suggested he expected to see the same timid, uncertain girl from years ago. I smiled to myself as I arrived, stepping into the sleek lobby of my office-cum gallery, the polished floors reflecting the sunlight that streamed through tall glass windows. I wore a tailored blazer over a silk blouse, my hair perfectly set, and the faint scent of vanilla and coffee following me as I walked past the minimalist art displays I had curated myself. He arrived first, flustered and unsure, his eyes darting around, taking in the subtle elegance of the space, the rare pieces I had acquired, each chosen with meticulous care, the awards quietly displayed in a corner, the personal touches that spoke of taste, skill, and years of careful planning. "Samantha," he started, hesitating, his pride struggling against shock. I didn't rush to speak. I let him take it all in, the light bouncing off the polished oak of my desk, the brass plaque on the door that read, "Samantha Hayes, founder and creative director." The subtle hum of activity around us, assistants coordinating schedules, artists discussing commissions, the soft strains of a string quartet playing in the background. Finally, I let the words slip. "You called me useless, Dad. Remember?" His face paled. He swallowed hard. "Well, he stammered. I held up my hand, stopping him. "Look around. All of this, I built it. My music, my business, my reputation. Without your approval, without your help. And, yes, without believing me when I needed it most." His shoulders slumped, guilt etching lines into his face. My mother, who had quietly followed him, looked equally stunned. The truth landed on them like a physical weight. They had expected the timid girl, the struggling dreamer, the one they had dismissed. Instead, here stood a woman commanding her world with quiet authority. "I am not just talented," I continued, my voice calm but firm, each word deliberate. "I am respected. I am independent. My gift, it isn't useless, Dad. And neither am I." I saw disbelief flash across his eyes, quickly followed by shame and a desperate hope that he could make amends. I let him process it, let him sit with the shock. He had never anticipated that I could become more than the sum of his doubts. When I finally walked him through my work, showing my contracts, my gallery spaces, the testimonials of people who trusted and admired me, it hit him fully. His voice caught. "Samantha, I didn't know." I shook my head softly, almost pitying. "Now you do. And this isn't just for you to admire. This is the woman I chose to become, despite everything you said. Even in their silence, I could feel the power shift subtly but unmistakably. I was no longer the girl in his living room, trembling under his scorn. I was Samantha Hayes, creator, leader, and unshakably proud of who I had become. The air in the gallery felt charged, almost electric. My father shifted uncomfortably beside me, his eyes tracing the lines of my success. My mother, more composed but equally stunned, fidgeted with her purse strap. I took a slow breath, letting the silence stretch just long enough to emphasize the shift. I was no longer the powerless daughter they once judged. Here's the thing, I began, my voice calm, even, but resolute. I'm willing to help you, but on my terms. My father blinked, confusion crossing his face. Terms? Yes, I said, smiling faintly but firmly. I've built this life through my talent, my determination, and the guidance of those who truly believed in me. If you want a place in it now, there are conditions tied to growth, not guilt. I looked at my mother first. Mom, you need to stop apologizing to make yourself feel better and start believing in your own worth. You're capable of so much more than living in fear of Dad's anger. Pursue something that makes you happy, your painting, your business idea, whatever it is, but do it sincerely. No excuses, no waiting for permission. Turning to my father, I saw shame in his eyes, but also the faint glimmer of wanting redemption. Dad, you must acknowledge the harm your words caused and take responsibility, not just to me, but to yourself. You need to understand that your judgment doesn't define anyone's worth. Therapy, mentorship, self-reflection, whatever it takes. Then, and only then, can we begin to rebuild any trust. They both nodded slowly, absorbing each demand. I let them feel the weight of it, because the point wasn't revenge. It was accountability. Growth. Healing. I continued, my voice softer now, laced with compassion. I care about you both. That's why I'm doing this. But I will not tolerate old patterns, criticism disguised as guidance, neglect disguised as advice, or words that belittle. If you want to be part of my life, you must meet me here, in honesty, effort, and respect. For a moment, the gallery felt almost sacred. The light glinted off the polished instruments, the awards, the carefully curated art, reflecting my journey from doubt to power. I wasn't angry anymore. I was firm, grounded, and unwavering. I could see it. The fear of judgment giving way to tentative understanding, the first steps toward change. They were beginning to realize that I was offering a chance for connection, not punishment. And that realization shifted the balance completely. I was no longer seeking approval. I was offering guidance from a place of strength, not submission. Finally, I closed my speech with a small, confident smile. You have work to do, but I believe you can do it. And when you do, we can have a relationship worth having. Honest, respectful, and real. For the first time in years, I felt the old tension lift. The power had shifted, but so had the potential for healing. And I could stand tall, knowing I had claimed it entirely on my terms. Weeks passed, and change began to take root in subtle, quiet ways. My father enrolled in a therapy program, and I could see the shift in him. A gentleness replacing the old sharpness, a willingness to listen instead of lecture. My mother, too, started painting again, sharing her work online, slowly reclaiming the joy she had tucked away for years. I watched them with a mix of relief and pride. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't perfect, but for the first time, I felt our family moving toward something real. Something grounded in respect rather than fear. Sitting in my apartment one evening, I lifted the music box from my nightstand, the same one my grandmother had given me years ago. Its carved surface felt smooth under my fingers, comforting and familiar. I wound it carefully, letting the melody fill the room, and smiled. That small object had witnessed my tears, my doubts, my persistence. It had been a silent companion through every late night, every struggle, every tiny victory. I thought about the girl I had once been, the one trembling in the living room, hearing the words useless echo through her head. And I thought about the woman I had become, confident, accomplished, and unapologetically proud of her own gift. Life had not been kind, but it had been honest. It had demanded resilience, courage, and self-belief. And in returning that honesty to my family with compassion but on my own terms, I had completed the circle. I set the music box down and leaned back, letting a soft laugh escape me, not of mockery, but of relief and triumph. I had carried the weight of doubt for years, and now it had transformed into strength. As the last notes of the music box faded, I whispered to myself, softly but with unwavering certainty, I am not useless. I am enough. I am everything I was meant to be. And in that moment, I knew the past no longer defined me. My gift, my voice, my life, they were mine entirely. And finally, those who once doubted me could see the truth, not as a lesson, but as proof that resilience, self-belief, and quiet determination always prevail.